Auto Squad, producer Dylan here with episode 6 of Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's Dramatic was released back on August 4th, 2021. In this episode, we get some truly bad advice, wonder where Miles keeps all his gadgets, and get a huge reveal at the end of the episode. So you'll have to stick all the way through this episode of AutoSave to find out.
Welcome to AutoSave. I'm Camille Salazar-Hadaway, and here with me is my co-host, Nick Andrade. What up, Nick? I see you throwing your hands up in the air. You're having a good day.
I like doing it every time. Every time you start the episode, I like to throw my hands up. But it's amazing because I have a blocker of the sun. I have blinds blocker. I don't know what
a blocker? That's what I'm going to call it now. A blocker of the sun. Blinds, Nick. Blinds.
It's just a cloth with suction cups on it. But because the sun comes directly in my eyes at around 3 p.m. every day, it is perfect right now. And I can see you on screen. I can see everything I need to read. Everything is perfect. I'm not blinded by the light. Pun intended.
All right. Okay. Well, Nick's not blinded by the light. I'm not blinded by the light. And also, as gamers, I guess we're not blinded by the light of our screens. Because I said it on dim. I don't know about you. But like I mentioned, we are both gamers. Yeah, exactly, right? But we are both gamers who are sharing our love for games and the games we love with you. We take deep dives into some of the most talked about video games. And in this episode, we are continuing our playthrough of Spider-Man Miles Morales into missions 11 and 12. Last episode, we found out Phin's motives after Simon Krieger killed her brother Rick while they were just trying to stop the new form reactor because it was making people sick. Uncle Aaron, or should I say the Prowler, helped Miles at the Roxxon research labs and told him it would be a good idea to gain Phin's trust with the Underground as Miles, and by lying to Phin and not telling her that Miles is Spider-Man.
No, she's too smart for that.
You'd be surprised. People get stupid when they care about someone. Like you're being stupid now.
If I told her the truth...
I told your dad the truth. Thought he had my back. Hoped he would. Be my brother. Instead, he cut me out. If I kept my mouth shut, maybe I'd still have a family. You know what you have to do.
I thought Uncle Aaron was going to go full-blown Shakespeare monologue there. You had the drama from, trying to tell his nephew what to do, not getting too close with friends because you'll just get hurt. Then the brotherly drama. Things are getting more dramatic just based off that. And that means that we're on the verge of a great turning point, which just happens to be our theme today. So Nick, when we think to great turning points and the drama that kind of builds to it, what are some of the stories that come to your mind?
Obviously, the Infinity War snap. That's number one. That one, again, I did not see that coming whatsoever, right? That was something.
Which snap? The first one? The second one?
Oh, the first one. Because I remember everyone in the theater just went just completely quiet. And then I remember walking out of the theater and it was just like, I couldn't even digest what had happened because oh my God. And I think again too, and I also Empire Strikes Back.
Ooh.
And Luke. Oh, sorry. It's not Luke, I am your father. I always forget. It is no, I am your father. Your
father, yes.
That is a common misconception. So I'm setting the record straight. But that also a giant turning point. I don't know how old you were when you watched Star Wars for the first time and found that out, but were you just as surprised?
Well, kind of and kind of not. My dad's a huge nerd, got me into Star Trek and Star Wars
too, wow.
And aliens and everything like that. So I was young, way after The Empire Strikes Back, but my dad was just peering from the corner, waiting for my reaction. So I wasn't necessarily surprised, but yeah, that was definitely one of those great moments that I think everybody kind of talks about. It became a pop culture moment, right? Because it was just such a great turning point. And yeah, the Infinity War snap, how they built up to that, it was this huge fight. You thought the heroes will actually win. And then no, dusted all of them.
Yeah, you don't think, you know that there's two parts of that movie.
Exactly.
Because you already obviously see it's going to be two parts. So you think, okay, they're probably going to end on a cliffhanger. Something bad's going to happen. But I did not expect, half of the world's population to just disappear.
And that's the thing too, like with that, we all know Thanos has the gauntlet and he is going to snap. But like you mentioned, we knew two parts were coming, so it wouldn't make sense to have the snap in the first part. But that's a huge story arc. But no, that's exactly what they did. And I feel like great turning points kind of set you up to be surprised. For me, I think of Matrix and like Neo and Agent Smith and how it kind of sets up Agent Smith to be the main villain that kind of ends up after everything being even the villain for the computers. He is the virus, right? Like, I never thought that would
Although
happen.
I kind of...
Oh, is that when you checked out? You're like, nah.
No. After the first movie, I kind of checked out.
Oh,
like,
no.
What was it? Revelations and Reloaded?
Reloaded.
Those are the two sequels?
Yeah, Revelations, yeah.
It started, like, I loved those movies, but I started getting... It kind of went downhill a little bit. But the whole twist was really cool.
Yeah, the twist was cool, especially like, you think of when Neo, he gets back into the real world, but he was able to stop one of the Sentinels. I think they're Sentinels. Whenever I say Sentinels, I think X-Men. So every time I think of Matrix and Sentinels, I have to like really think that they're called Sentinels. But yes, Matrix, the Neo. I think of also Batman, Death in the Family, the death of Jason Todd. Then he becomes kind of like this villain. That was a really cool turning point. And I feel like a lot of great stories have this. Now, do you think that this is the only way to go, though, with a great storyline?
That's a good point. Because it seems like, especially in today's media, everything has to have a twist. And if you don't have a twist, then it's not good enough, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be a super twist in terms of like something that throws you off completely, but it should have some sort of aha moment, or maybe like the pit of your stomach, something happens where you're like, oh no, something bad or something shocking has to happen. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a twist or a turning point, but as long as there's some sort of conflict, right?
A conflict that kind of sets up for something to happen.
Right.
Now, in video games, do you think that's the same? Like, is there a video game story arc that you think has a really great turning point?
Oh God. Oh, yes, of course. BioShock, the first BioShock.
Oh,
that I don't who's ever played it or whatever. I might spoil it for you, but you find out at the end of the game.
It's been years, okay? You should have played it already. You should have played it. But yes, BioShock spoiler.
I know, I'm just being careful. Yeah, but you find out at the end that you were basically doing things on the orders of someone else with a certain phrase, and you were kind of just going around killing people for their sake and not realizing it. I thought that was one of the greatest twists for me in video game history. What about you?
I would probably say, well, The Last of Us. There's a really good twist in there. As well, I would probably say Resident Evil, when you find out Umbrella is kind of like this mastermind behind everything. So I would definitely think the Resident Evil games as well.
I'm just trying to think, is there games that don't have twists anymore?
I feel like all of like Mario games, right? Like I feel like we know exactly what we're going to get. We know Bowser's always the bad guy. We know, Pokemon, there's always going to be the other trainer that's just as good as you, but you're trying to be better. So I think there is something to be said on still being successful and not necessarily needing that great turning point, especially in video games. Because I think when gamers go to a franchise, especially a franchise that they love, they kind of want to know what to expect. We're very judgmental sometimes when things change that are not in our liking.
Normally twists too have to deal with, and we see it a lot in this game, which is complicated characters, right? Like everyone is on a different side. And when that happens, it creates something of a twist, I guess, because either someone is good that is bad or bad that is good, or something happens, there's always a twist because of these complicated characters that have complicated feelings. So at a dime, they can kind of almost see the light sometimes, right? Like it's like a Kylo Ren Rey situation where, although I'm not a fan of those movies, unfortunately,
they really messed up after the first one.
I don't even want to get into it, but I agree with you. I really loved Force Awakens, and I was on board, and then they just ruined it for me. But we'll get into this maybe at another time if we play a Star Wars game or something like that. But again, it's complicated characters who don't really know where their standing is in terms of certain things. They want to be good, they want to be bad, or they want to do something because they think it's just or right, even if it's not the right thing. And they kind of are constantly conflicted with that. And I think that's what creates these great turning points in games and in movies and shows and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, just came to my mind, the first Spider-Man game, it had a really good story turning point, especially for a story that we know so well. Spoilers if you haven't played the first Spider-Man game, but the death of Aunt May.
Oh yeah,
I was not expecting that in the first game.
Was I, yeah.
And that was really shocking to me that they actually put that in there, because then Peter, always has AMA with him, right? So he's now going alone as this caped crusader. He doesn't have cape.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And he literally lost everyone that was important to him growing up.
I forgot about that because it was almost a subtle death. It wasn't necessarily because she died. Oh man, I'm already forgetting all these things. She died because of the poison?
Yes, at Feast. Remember they had her. Yes. And actually Miles was there as well, and Miles was affected by that death just because he would help out at Feast so much with Aunt May. So that was a really shocking story point. And then you have them possibly changing up how we look at certain characters in preparation for the next game, but I won't get into that one. My
aha moment was Into the Spider-Verse, where there was a few there, which was, I was confused when Peter died at the beginning of the movie, and then we find out there's another interdimensional Peter that helps out Miles, and then also Doc Ock honestly did not clue in whatsoever that she was Doc Ock. And that, to me, I was like in the theater like, whoa!
Yes, I was completely surprised by that one. Was it Catherine?
It was Catherine Hahn, yeah.
Yeah, Catherine Hahn. She did voice her as well. Yeah, that was a really great aha, like, oh my God, they did what moments. And especially for superheroes, those moments serve so well. And I think as we get into this episode, after the break, we're going to dive into some gameplay.
Okay, I gotta do it. Call Phin, get her to let me in the underground.
Hey, Miles. You okay?
Yeah. Why would you say that?
I saw the news about your mom's rally.
We're fine. Do you have time to get coffee, maybe?
I can make time. There's a place on Edison, near Fisk Tower. They don't do foam art, but people don't take pictures of their lattes, so worth it.
Okay, meet you there.
So Miles makes good on bad advice that he received by Uncle Aaron, and he decides to get a coffee with Phin to talk things over. This is bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the way she talks and she's trying to make a joke about the foam art, I feel bad because he's just really, doing what Uncle Aaron said, but it just seems wrong.
Yeah. Leading
her on like this, I don't like it. Personally.
Yeah, it's just really, it just gives me the vibes. No, Miles, don't turn away. This is not, turn back, take the other path. Also, why is Phin calling now? How long was it that the bridge kind of exploded at the rally?
I guess it's after Christmas, we can safely say, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you saw that your friend was in danger, wouldn't you pick up that phone the same day or the next day? But I guess she's busy being the tinkerer, so maybe that's why that kind of got in the way. But as they talk, this happens.
Found out about Rick. I'm so sorry.
What else did you find out?
I want to help you. But you gotta talk to me.
I'm really sorry your mom got hurt at her rally. If that new Spider-Man hadn't shown up, everyone would have been fine. Please don't try to talk me out of this. I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
Miles tells Phin that he has to talk to her. And, through their conversation, she kind of confesses to being the Tinkerer to Miles. So she's not confessing to Spider-Man, she's confessing to Miles. This makes things a little bit complicated because we have to remember that Phin doesn't know Miles is Spider-Man. So really, she's just kind of confiding in her friend. She's really being vulnerable at this moment and hoping that her friend really understands that she didn't mean any harm to come to Miles or his family, which is really interesting at this point because you waited a few days to call your friend after the bridge exploded. I can't get over that. I can't get over that. But how do you feel about this kind of confession?
First of all, I feel really yucky because I feel like Miles is using this situation and I don't like it. This is coming from, I'm a pretty honest person. I wear my heart on my sleeve and I trust people innately, even if that causes me trouble in the future. I give people the benefit of the doubt. So to see Miles have this conversation with Phin and, let her drop her guard and let her walls down because you're trying to be a good friend, but you are completely lying to her. It just feels kind of gross to me. And on top of that, that Phin is the Tinkerer, but Phin is coming to you. You're her friend and confessing on her own. Mm-hmm. That's big. And especially now that Miles, you have this secret and your friend is literally confessing to you without knowing that you already know, which means it's a pretty big deal. And you are using that information to your advantage. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Because all at this point, Phin really knows because Miles shared hey, I went to your parents' old place and I kind of saw things, what's going on, and kind of manipulates Phin into this confession, right? So it's sad because I don't think Miles sees it as being manipulative. No, I feel like he sees it as just him trying to get to the truth. And I think that influence really does come from his Uncle Aaron, which is unfortunate. He's evil, I tell you, he's evil. Don't believe a word he says. But it's really is just that one-way conversation that's happening at this point because Miles isn't giving anything to it.
Miles is scared that he knows that he has to keep his identity safe, but it doesn't help that your only person to kind of talk this through is Uncle Aaron. And I remember from the last episode and from the last mission that we saw when Miles was in Phin's family's old shop, that when he said, funny how we both started wearing masks, that to me should clue in that maybe you and your friend aren't so different after all. That regardless of what her motives are, you guys are both behind the mask and maybe you should trust in that. And if she's coming to you to confess this, you gotta do the same. That's all I think. It's you have to do the same right in that moment.
Yeah.
It's a perfect opportunity.
You're absolutely right. This is definitely, Miles not taking the right path and maybe Uncle Aaron speaking here rather than Miles. So Miles, through speaking with Phin, kind of gains Phin's trust and he asks to join the underground, which is even more... It's no, Miles.
No.
Stop digging that hole for yourself. Come on.
He's digging a grave.
Oh, geez. And pretty much their secret hideout just happens to be in Fisk Tower while they're just stooped there while Fisk is in jail, I guess.
Which is weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. Now, most of the tech and programmable material that the Underground is using is from Phin. She struck a deal with Fisk to kind of take down Krieger at this point, right? That's why they're kind of stowed up into the Fisk Tower. So, pretty much she's being funded by Fisk, which is baddie.
Even worse, yeah.
Miles then lies about having to take care of his mom while he's at this kind of secret underground lair that Phin takes him to. And Finn's okay, peace. I won't show you the door. just find your way out yourself kind of thing.
Because she trusts him.
I know, it's actually pretty sad. But then you put on the mask and now you're Spider-Man again. And guess what? Another stealth mission at Fisk Tower. And there's a whole ton of underground goons that are just walking it around. And I personally found this mission very fun. I love stealth. I spoke about it before in other episodes. And I feel like this mission really forced you to use all of your tools in your belts. Where does Spider-Man really keep his tools? Because he doesn't have a utility belt.
Right. I don't know. There's no pockets. It's all spandex.
Right? If you guys know at home, please let us know because I have questions.
In his underwear?
Oh, that's weird. That's weird. There's just a slip.
You know how Spider-Man normally has like, giant muscles or whatever. Maybe it's not actually pecs, and maybe it's just his tools in his pectoral area.
His pectoral area. Oh gosh. I don't like that word.
I'm sorry. I'm really giving you weird words sometimes. I'm sorry, but you're using them, so thank you.
No problem. But yeah, we'll have to figure out where he's keeping all these tools. But I found this mission really fun in terms of the different tools that you use and having to kind of manage your timing of your enemies with camouflaging and moving quickly.
It gave us, especially how big the area was, it's probably the biggest area that we've had to do stealth missions. And there's so many underground members that you have to get rid of. So it takes some time. It took me quite a while to do, but again, like it's so much fun to, have to use all your stealth gadgets just to make this happen, because you get caught pretty quickly if you don't.
Yes, exactly. Now, once those are done, you find a secret passage under a samurai warrior, which, I mean, where else would you hide a secret passage?
Yeah.
It was very cool. This is where things kind of get like all Indiana Jones-ish. You sneak down to a vault and then you find Phin, but the new form isn't there.
They're hideouts. New form's gotta be in one of them.
I need a clearer picture. Then I can narrow it down.
We don't know enough about this stuff. What it is, where it came from.
My brother created new form. Chief chemist. And Roxxon killed him.
With this, Miles kind of is camouflaged and sneaks right under Finn's nose. I mean, does Miles breathe? Like, because sometimes with some of these camouflage shots, he's fairly close, or it makes it seem like he's very close in camouflage. And I was kind of worried because in this particular scene, it kind of seems like he's right next to the computer while they're looking at it.
There's this part in the scene where he accidentally blows over a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, what just happened? And then Phin is looking directly at him. So again, like you said, breathing wise, I don't know about you. I'm probably like, sometimes I got to breathe through my mouth because my nostrils are plugged from allergies. So people are going to hear my breathing, especially after a piece of paper slips off. You got to think like there's somebody in here at this point.
Well, I guess that's why we're not super sleuths. But I guess Miles is. Now, Miles also manages to steal the whereabouts of all the underground hideouts that could have new form. And that unlocks another collectible mission, or a set of collectible missions, where you have to go to every underground hideout. Did you start doing that right off the bat, or did you wait?
I did it as I saw them. So if I was close in proximity, in the Manhattan map, I would go there. But I wouldn't go out of my way. But a lot of this is mostly like you have to shut off generators. So it's kind of repetitive. So unlike you, I did most of my combat missions at the end of the game when I had everything. It made things a lot easier and less stressful. But I didn't unlock so many suits because of that's the reason why. Because if you don't do these combat missions early, you don't unlock some of these suits, which... There are some really cool suits out there.
The suits are the coolest thing, I think, of this whole game.
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to go back into one thing, which was when Miles goes and is going to be a part of the underground and he leaves Phin, they go all through all this stuff to say, I got to go home to my mom. I still found that really funny because it's like, and then Phin is like, oh, okay, cool. But like, weren't you just supposed to join the underground?
That honestly I think was bad scripting on Insomniac's
just
part.
Plain and simple. They didn't know what to do. Okay.
It was bad scripting because you firstly go to this rooftop in order to enter this underground hideout. Then you have to walk on cranes that are up high in the sky.
Exactly.
And jump over while other underground members are looking at you. So it's very intimidating. And then as you cross, it almost feels like almost immediately he's like, I gotta go look at my mom.
What? Huh?
Yeah, it's very weird. I do think that was like one of the few moments in the game where it's like just poorly scripted, not well developed. Yeah, they didn't know how to have him switch over to being Spider-Man, which really you could have just, why not use the old, where's the bathroom excuse?
Exactly. That would have been way better. 100%.
I mean, that would have been better. But anyways, when you unlock all the hideouts, that actually ends Mission 11, and then it loads Miles with a lot more information and transitions, and then you go into Mission 12, Curtain Call. Now here, you're kind of looking for a new form at Gem Theater, and Miles has to turn off generators around one gigantic electric barrier so he could waltz in. And that means 4 buildings where Miles has to get rid of all the underground and turn off generators, which is kind of tedious and kind of annoying. They're pretty easy fights, and you could either do them in stealth and melee, but I think probably stealth's the easiest.
Yeah.
Is that the way you went?
Yeah, it's the way I went. I actually have a bone to pick now that I just thought of it right now as you said it. But video games in general, is there a way that they can find a way to... I mean, these generators, we have to shut off these generators. That's a common theme throughout the entire game. And I notice this in a lot of games, if not all games, is there's a lot of, especially AAA RPGs, let's say, there is a lot of repeating things and doing some of the sort of the same challenges over and over, and the side missions are a lot of the same thing, and that to me gets a lot repetitive. It gets very repetitive. So I feel like, what's the solution to that? I'm not really sure, but sometimes, and I found it especially doing this one, it just seemed very repetitive. Just to get in the Gem Theater, I had to go to 4 generators and then unplug another generator, and then that's how I got it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is very repetitive, especially you feel that with this mission, especially coming off the Fist Tower mission, because I found like that was just the setup of how your enemies, like the underground, was kind of laid out throughout Mission 11. I found it really interesting. There were different floors, different areas that you could go into. And then when you kind of go into this mission, it's like, oh no, we're back to the same old, just going to different rooftops to unlock generators. We have to like go and find behind walls where the power nodes would be and then kind of like connect it. And it's just like this kind of game that you're playing with like L square and X, and you're just pressing Venom Smash at the same time over and over again. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. Maybe they could do something a little bit more.
I've been playing Assassin's Creed again too, and I noticed that there's just so many side missions that are the same quests over and over. Just maybe add a little sprinkle of different ones here and there. I knew Final Fantasy VII Remake, they do a really good job at side missions are normally different, even though they're weird and kind of boring. They're always different, and I do like that aspect.
Now, through this mission, you kind of have to go back to the main generator and you switch that on. But while doing so, Ganke and Miles creates a pros and cons list.
So why do you think I should tell Phin I'm Spider-Man? Don't you think she might react badly?
Let's make a pros and cons list. Pro, she's your best friend. Besides me.
Con, she's a tinkerer.
Pro, talking to her is easier than sneaking around behind her back.
Con, the other Spider-Man was super clear. Don't tell anyone who you are.
You told me. Maybe if she knows it's you she's fighting, she'll rethink the whole tinkerer thing.
Maybe you're right.
So, like, Ganke, again, that voice of reason, giving Miles another opportunity to tell Phin, you know, the truth and kind of dig himself or climb out of that hole that he really dug himself. But then he's just always turning it down. What side are you on?
I'm obviously Team Ganke. Like, you should have told Phin from the start. I know he's like, he might be your favorite character, Ganke, you would say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ganke's like my favorite character.
He's just so pure. Like, he seems even more pure than Miles does at this point. Because he's saying things that a matured adult would say. And that to me, as a 16-year-old, he's got it. He's got it.
I know he's very wise for a 16-year-old kid. But you gotta love him. The guy in the chair always knows best. Now, at this point, you unlock the new form, and guess what? Underground shows up, and there's lots of battles and fights. And this one now, Phin actually shows up as the Tinkerer and grabs the new form. And now you got to race her around the city after, kind of similar to the Harry Osborn Spider-Man 3 style.
By the way, that movie's horrible, but I won't mention it. Sorry. James Franco is not good in that movie, but it's okay.
What? You don't like his, he's always just, looking in a mirror and just looking all sad throughout the whole movie. You don't like that?
Sad and brooding. This was before his Oscar award-winning nominations and wins, before those good movies. He was still trying to find himself. But, yeah, it was very Spider-Man 3-esque, almost like the Hobgoblin trying to chase her around the city.
Now, with this was actually a really exciting part for me, because it's like you're chasing around the city. You kind of got to dodge everything and try everything you can to catch up, which is a great difference, a contrast from what you were doing with the generators. Now, you got to climb up a building and a wall, and she throws all these giant spikes down, and you dodge them until you catch up with her at the end. And then this happens.
Give me one good reason not to end you.
My mom would be very upset.
Miles?
Can we just...
You two on the roof! Freeze!
Oh my gosh, heartbreaking. That reveal. I feel like you spoke about parallels before. That reveal and that reaction that Phin has right there, very similar to how Miles reacted when he found out Phin was the Tinkerer.
I think, though, more heartbreaking. And every time I listen to her saying Miles in that broken voice, I just got teary-eyed again. Maybe I'm a sap. I don't know.
Aww.
But to me, I think it hurts even more because and the inflection in her voice is worse than when Miles found out, because she knew a lot more about Miles after the fact, after she trusted him to join the underground, to reveal that she's the Tinkerer. After all that, now you decide to show yourself, and that was the purest of pure, just broken voice heartbreak. That was almost like Ralph Wiggum in The Simpsons with Lisa Simpson when she yells at him and then she says that she's not in love with him. That to me was the exact same situation.
You don't want to rewind this moment over and over again and literally hear the heartbreaking. No, don't do that. Definitely a crushing moment for Phin, and I never really thought about it in that respect, where she just was showing him a tour of the underground hideouts and really trusted that he believed in what she was doing. And she was kind of probably thinking he thought that was the right thing. I feel like also Phin as the Tinkerer is kind of doing this herself, taking on the mantle of what Rick was trying to do. And maybe also looking for confirmation from a close friend like Miles, and got that when Miles was like, I'll join too, just to be let down. And, kind of now clued into the fact that they're pitted against each other throughout the story.
I was going to say, at the same time, too, we have to understand, if Miles thinks, oh, well, I didn't know that she was a Tinkerer. At the same time, when Miles first found out, she hasn't been around for a while. You haven't seen her for a while. You don't know what she's been going through. You haven't seen Rick. You haven't seen all these people. It's been a long while. You don't know what she's gone through. Meanwhile, again, I'll just hammer this home, but she opened up to you and you backstabbed her. So in my opinion, it's even worse than what she did to him, regardless of if she might be a villain or not.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's kind of where they leave this mission. That is the ultimate cliffhanger, and how they kind of turn the story on this. We were talking about turning points, and it just kind of do you like cliffhangers? Because at this point I was like, no, I need to know more.
I personally love cliffhangers, but where I love cliffhangers the most is TV shows. And TV shows pretty much every TV show has a cliffhanger at the end of an episode. They will cliffhanger something to move the plot along, regardless if the story in the episode didn't have that. And, you know, obviously I personally love it, but I do notice as well is that you kind of need to have these cliffhangers. Why? What's the main reason? Because it attaches these people more. And like you said, you wanted to find out, no, why? What happened? Perfect. Bravo, Insomniac.
So I guess this was a good cliffhanger. And before we get into our thoughts about where we think Phin and Miles' relationship is at this point, why don't we just take a quick break?
What about a theater? Phin mentioned one.
A theater, huh? That's
Don't say it, Ganke.
dramatic.
Welcome back to AutoSave, and you heard it right there. Ganke said it, our theme. That's dramatic. I was hoping we would time it, Nick, but you missed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, let's do it again, okay?
Yeah.
Say the line.
Okay.
Here we go. That's dramatic.
Okay.
Did we get?
We gotta work on this.
It doesn't matter.
We gotta work on this.
In post, I can put it together.
Oh, we'll
it's
line
fine.
it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll line it up.
All
Don't
right,
tell
make sure to
anybody.
do that.
Secrets. Yeah.
No one will know. No one will know. We'll keep the secrets from them. That always ends up good when you keep secrets. Anyways,
Yes.
let's face it though. He wasn't wrong. Ganke wasn't wrong. It was very dramatic throughout these missions. And I feel like a lot happened in terms of the development of Miles and Finn's relationship. I want to know, how did you feel about their relationship progressed in these missions? And do you think that it could went another way if Miles was just honest?
For story purposes, obviously the writers aren't gonna, make it hunky dory and be like, "You're Tinker, I'm Spider-Man. Oh my God, this is amazing!" Like, obviously that's not gonna happen. But to me, I'm really flipping. Like this game is really giving me, like, I can't figure out who I'm cheering for, because at the beginning I hated Peter because Peter I thought was mean to Miles, even though Peter Parker is one of my favorite characters of all time in comic books. And then I love Miles because, oh, he's such a pure of heart hero. He's incredible. He's amazing. I love him so much. Wow, Ganke, he's such a nice guy. These are all people that I can relate with because I feel like I don't want to say I'm a nice, but I feel like, you're
a nice guy.
Okay,
You're a nice
but
guy.
I want to like, wow, these guys are kind of like the way I deal with situations. I really like this. And now by this point, I'm like, I kind of am siding with Phin here. Her brother got murdered. She's trying to, even though she's trying to murder Simon Krieger, which is probably not the best way to do it, she's kind of, she has her motives, and I'm siding with her now, and I feel bad for her, and I feel bad for her because of the way Miles is treating her.
You're right. I'm on board with that. Usually, the hero is always the one making the right decisions all the time. And, if they make a mistake, they're making that mistake in a quick instant of trying to save someone's life, right? They don't pull the car fast enough or something like that, right? But for Miles, like, we've been on now multiple missions where we see him continuing to make the wrong decision over and over and over again. And he has multiple opportunities to correct it. And it doesn't make me hate Miles or anything. Like, I still really like Miles as a character. But at some point, you just want to reach into the screen and shake him and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't do it, Miles. Like, the game does a really good job on showing how even someone that is as righteous and heroic as Miles is can still go down the wrong path based on his influences. And really, I have to go back to Uncle Aaron on this. The bad decision through these missions really stems from Uncle Aaron's advice.
This is layers and layers of manipulation. It's Uncle Aaron manipulating Miles, who is manipulating Phin because he thinks it's the right thing to do, because he's being manipulated by Uncle Aaron to believe like what he's doing is right. And it doesn't matter what Ganke has to say because he doesn't care, and he's strictly going after his he believes that his uncle is giving him the right advice because they're family. So how could he be giving him the wrong advice? But again, you have to see it as there's an ulterior motive here. We don't really know what it is, but the Prowler is still the Prowler. And he's not taking that into consideration because he only sees his Uncle Aaron. He used to be a burglar. There's a reason why your dad didn't want to associate with you.
And, as you were talking, I was like, that's usually the downfall of a hero, or like really a point where they reach an all-time low. They're too trusting. They're too naive and thinking everyone is as good as they are. They don't see the signs. Like when Uncle Aaron doesn't understand why Miles cares so much about this new foreman, the reactor, and all of that stuff, just because he's trying to save the community and stand for what's right. Like, that's a red flag there, Miles, you know? And that's usually a point where you know that person is probably going to hurt the hero in the end.
The connection between Peter and Miles is so strong in this situation because Peter, throughout his life, was always a very trusting person. And it got him into trouble. He trusted Doc Ock. He trusted Felicia Hardy. He trusts, you know, certain people that they can do the right thing. And Miles is the same way. And unfortunately, yeah, like if you trust someone so much because you truly believe they're a good person, you know, if they're not, it causes you issues. And then all of a sudden you are in turn hurting someone else because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how their relationship progresses. Do you think that it could get better?
I don't know. It depends on who's willing to change, right? At first I was like, okay, well, you know, Miles is looking at it like, oh, I think I can save Phin. But at this point now, I think to myself, like, maybe Miles is in the wrong a little bit here. I don't know if this can be rectified, to be honest. That's just my honest opinion.
I don't know either. I was just going to see if you had the answers. You usually do have all the answers now.
No, never.
All right. Well, you know, with these missions, we also had lots of action and combat. Just overall, how did you find these missions? Were they easy? Were they hard? How long did it take you? Did you spend a lot of time in stealth? It sounded like you did.
I did. Normally in games, I like to just button mash, and especially like in the Arkham Batman games, like I will punch people and very rarely use detective mode. This is the same. This is different in this game where I like using stealth. It's fun. He normally has like fun things to say while he does it. And I love seeing the bad guys squirm where they're just like, where'd he go? What's going on here? Why? I still don't understand. Like the AI sometimes I think just to myself, it's like, if I put my shoes into a villain in a game and I'm just like standing guard and 4 of my buddies are gone, probably something bad is happening. I'm not going to stick to my post.
Something's up. I will give them credit though. They sometimes stumble along a body if you've left it there and they're like, he's here somewhere. That was a horrible New York accent. I apologize.
No, that was great. I loved it. I was going to say too, for easy hard, I don't know if we can, it's mostly, it's just fun. Regardless of if it's easy or hard, I never am bored of this game. It's very fast paced. Like we talked about them revealing things really fast. It's very fast paced where you never feel like, again, there are times in certain games, if I'm playing long enough, I start to get sleepy and I'm just like, I have my controller and I'm just like, I just want to lay down. But this game, you never feel that because it's going.
Yeah, it does move very quickly. And I know we talked about some parts of it being repetitive, but I think in especially the combat aspects, not necessarily connecting the generators and all that stuff, but the combat aspect, I find it's so repetitively done, but addictive at the same time. Like you get into the flow of certain combinations, knocking down certain enemy types, that you want to do it again and again. It's kind of like a slot machine. You just want to keep pulling that lever.
I don't know. I've never been addicted to slot machines.
Well, I'm not trying to say I have a gambling problem, but I do enjoy a slot machine. That's for sure.
Good to know.
But it is like the repetitive nature of combat, I think, is really intriguing and fun. And although they offer like these little gadgets that kind of make everything a little bit different, it's still the same basis throughout, and the story kind of just makes you want to keep going, and it makes it refreshing for me, so it's not too boring in that aspect.
I have one thing that I just thought of was the combat in general in regular missions seems like it's even more difficult than when you're facing bosses or villains. Like Rhino and this mission right here with Phin, it felt really quick.
Well, I don't know. Like the combat, yes, quick. It does. The boss mission or boss when you're facing off against a boss is quicker. But Phin, like when she throws those blades, I feel like it's difficult at some points. When I was going up that
I had
building,
no issue with it.
What? Oh my gosh, maybe I'm just really horrible at timing the jumps and
No, I'm 100% worse than you at video games, I could honestly say.
anyways, you could also find Nick and myself on Twitter at Nick Andrade and myself at This Is Camco. And just drop us a line. Let us know what's up. Let us know if you think Spider-Man has pockets or the pecs are really just gadgets.
I hope not. I really hope not.
For what's coming up on our next episode, well,
I know what to do about Phin. I gotta see her. Try to talk her out of all this.
In person? Where?
Trinity Church. Tomorrow night. Why so interested?
Because you got a target on your back the size of Jersey.
You don't have to protect me.
Someone should.
Uncle Aaron is back, and it seems like he may be up to something, but we'll have to find out next time on AutoSave. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Nick Andrade and myself, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Zeiser. Executive producer, Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now. And if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and a review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.